delivery process of the company using Scrum, Kanban, and other stuff. So without further ado, please welcome Marta, Paweł, and Piotr.
And it's not working.
It's okay? It's okay. Hello. We'd like to tell you the story of the transformation that took place in Fru. So as you can see, we hope to have a lot of stuff, no fluff. This is our journey over the last 14 months. As you can see, there's 3 people. There's Paweł, who joined Fru 14 months ago as a CTO. He called me, I joined as an agile consultant, and Marta, who was dealing with the people side. So you say software is a process problem, it's a matter of designing the right system, right? Would you agree with that? Or maybe it's the software is a people problem, not technology problem. So the story we'd like to tell you about today is that actually we have 2 main points. The first is that transformation is of course dealing with software, with products, but it's also mainly dealing with people. It's all about people. And Scrum is only a part of the picture. So Scrum tells you nothing about how to organize marketing, sales on the business side, or bugs and technical debt on the technical side. So about people, this is me and Paweł. Paweł called me some time ago, just because we knew each other from Sabre Corporation when we worked a few years ago. And so I probably delivered a pretty good training, because a few years later he called me to actually train the whole company. So what I've seen when I joined the company was there was a separate monolithic IT organization with separate businesses. Businesses were not very happy about the speed of delivery or quality of it. And IT organization was frustrated because of all ever-changing priorities. So, with all that in mind, there were a few problems, and there were a few people problems. So first is, I could see on our organization that there was not really clear what's going on. Slack channels were red, full of activity. People were asking who's responsible for what. And what you could see is actually the company was actually a set of individuals rather than a working team. So I thought that Scrum actually can fix a lot of problems. For example, it can give clear priorities with product owners and backlog. It can give you teams, it can give you clear responsibilities, and of course, inject some values, like for example, continuous improvement. That's what we wanted to do. And so I had a great privilege of actually training most of the company, let's say on the technical side, some testers, also business people, managers, and the board. And I could see a growing list of things that we need to fix. But at the same time, people with great passion, energy, and actually willing to change. So problem number 1 was a people problem. We had problem with ownership. Board was actually very strong personalities, and people had problems taking ownership when not pushed hard. We had some communication problems. Some communication seemed broken. So that was all, people problems. The second problems were business problems. People had really problem understanding what and why are we doing, what these priorities are like this, how much we are earning. Actually, we had some problems tracing back how much each business is doing. So that was a business problems. And the third actually is technical problems. So we had great technical debt, spaghetti code all over the place. We had architecture in just people's minds. And that was all just asking for troubles. And so these guys actually made a fabulous work, because actually the 2 of them were actually pushing this transformation forward. So all the people could see the energy. And at the same time, what happened is that they invited people actually to join and to have influence. So that was also fixing the problem of ownership at the same time. So that was a huge pleasure cooperating with them. So problem number 1 that occurred, very clear. Scrum part was easy. The problem was with product owners. How do you get a person that actually understands the business realities, shields like 10 plus stakeholders, and provides a backlog that makes sense and can defend it against the board? Second problem, transparent product backlog. So if you have Scrum team, they can deliver really fast. But how do you actually make a good quality user story that you can defend based on analytics, on measurements, something that you can, measure and give an evidence that this is the story that we should be delivering? So I hit the point that how to help people take ownership. I was scratching my head. There was a day that I actually even helped organize a board meeting, a quarterly and yearly planning. And I failed so miserably that I called Marta, nearly crying. Oh, that was my face. And I said, it's just, I'm done. You know, I cannot continue with the ownership. I don't know how to fix that problem. And so these guys continue my work, and I kicked out of the company.
This was actually exactly how it was. So we decided to take the full ownership, so to get rid of a consultant and try to do it on our own. And we realized that we are in the situation when we are doing the open heart surgery and the patient is still alive. Yay! But yet still you need to make him alive, or at least keep him alive. And the biggest thing that actually I think is the main success factor today for us is a team. One evening we've realized that we have no clear view of the organization whatsoever, no control whatsoever, and that was the moment that together with 6 other managers we've decided to form a team. So not to coordinate silos efforts, but simply to do stuff together. And this is where we are now. So we have a patient that is still alive, we have a team that operates open heart surgery, and we try to monitor, like life functions in order to keep the patient alive. And one of the most important life functions that we need to think about when we talk about people are leadership skills. I know, like bullshit bingo, leadership, blah, 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 values and attitudes. And at the end of the day, we take a very simple attitude to that, and we just monitor behavior. When I've entered the company, I just started, going and following managers and looking how they work and going to the meetings and giving them feedback and looking on how they behave. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what do you have in your heart. Apparently, it matters what do you show to other people. Let's have an example. This is a leadership example from our organization. He's called Paweł. And once I realized that he has this issue with firmness, whenever he asked somebody to do something, I would read that question because this is exactly how he asked. Could you possibly please be so kind and do that? When it comes to delegation, it's better to do, I would like you to do this and that, and the deadline for that is, and then that's a particular date. So what I've done, I've just rolled my eyes. It's called immediate feedback. And whenever I've rolled my eyes, he knew that there is a sentence to be changed. We do use a lot of immediate feedback, not only by rolling eyes. For example, whenever there is some Slack temperature discussion, somebody enters and says, guys, this is not the quality of discussion that we want to have here. Second thing that we do is a quarterly feedback, just to make people feel that they are a part of the system. We collect 360 or 180, it doesn't matter, as long as people feel that they influence each other and that their behavior actually shapes somebody else's behavior, which is really valid here. We talk a lot about people, like we just talk about how people feel, what do they need. It doesn't mean that we do stuff, but we put the people's perspective into perspective in order to have this data, on all of the time before our eyes. What we fail at, precise actions for people. We still just sniff and do something and see whether it goes beep or beep, 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 and then you say, wow, okay, great, we can go further. I do even have the we failed courage stuff, because this is what you need when you go into transformation and you take people with you. You need to have resilience. The shitstorm will come, you know that. And you need to have courage, because at the end of the day, your courage and your transparency is what counts when you stand in front of your people. We've experienced that actually, because we had some turbulence during some business turbulence. So we had to do some personal changes, and we used that to say goodbye to some people that didn't actually fit into the organizational culture. It caused a lot of stress, a lot of emotions, a lot of problems among other employees. And we just had, to take full responsibility and take that emotions on us and says, okay, guys, you have all of the right to feel this way, and yet still this is our decision and it is a good thing to do. That's the most difficult part in leadership, in my opinion, honestly. So to sum up, guys, if you want to transform and you want to take people with you, get yourself a team. Do not do it on your own, because you will probably fail and you will feel miserably lonely. That's not worth it.
True.
Take care for leadership skills. Invest time and talk about it. If you have money, invest money. But talk about leadership. Use a lot of feedback. you can't overdose it. And actually, if you overdose it, then people will give you feedback on that, so you are totally fine. And be prepared for difficult decisions. Somebody has to be courageous in this organization, and apparently it may also be you. Now,
Thank you, Marta.
Paweł will say some words about other angle of that.
So the other angle of the entire transformation and the way I seen it is, have you ever worked for a company, for a startup that has been successful? Out of a sudden, you don't know anyone. You walk into the office, you had one team, you totally knew everybody, and out of a sudden, there is a bunch of people, aliens basically, that you don't know even their names. You got a project that was supposed to last 2 months, and it ended as a 2-year journey. A small application with just a couple of classes, out of a sudden, it's 1 million lines of code, and you don't know how to handle that. So this is basically the picture of the flow when I was joining the company. It grew very, very, very broad, and after 2 weeks, I already knew that we need some kind of a project management system. I went with Scrum. I called Piotr. He did a decent job in my previous job. Just joking, great job. And together we started with a training. But the biggest problem we had and we faced was actually what Piotr mentioned, our product owners. With the mid-sized company, the product owner is basically a superhero. He needs to do marketing stuff, he needs to do talking with the board, with all the stakeholders. It's a really, really broad responsibility. So we got a couple of approaches, and we went with the e-commerce marketing manager. This is the guy that holds money, that understands money, that can calculate business value, that will basically talk money. And guess what happened? We failed, because this guy was not engaging at all for the team, and everything that he was talking was money. Second approach, and we went with a different team. They have different dynamics. They were very close together. So we talked managers, UX designers, content guys. We put in a team and say create a backlog. And they were very good with that. They created marvelous backlog, but they were working so fast that the team couldn't manage with that. So it failed. Third team, an IB and a core team actually went very minimalistic. They created a Kanban board, had just a couple of states with the business analysis, IT analysis, blah, 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 you know this stuff. But the product owner didn't communicate it very well to the rest of the organization, so they were working in a silo. Plus, all the teams were working on a common application, but all the products were separated together as a business unit. So Marta came in, made a wonderful job of combining this thing together and having a common vision and strategy for the entire organization. But when you start working and things start to get along, you start finding skeletons in a closet. And our first skeleton was technical debt. So imagine, you start doing projects, you don't know what to do, and at some point things start to get along, and then you realize that the problem is not with the process itself, but with the code. So at one point, I was just talking with the technology team. They all knew that the code, state of application is not very well. The next day, I get a call from the board, and they say, Paweł, what is this technical debt, and how we are going to deal with that? But dealing with technical debt is not for the sake of dealing with technical debt, or refactoring, not the sake of refactoring. You need to have a goal. So together with the board, we found a very clear goal. We would like to deliver projects on time with a less of maintenance cost. And right now, how we are doing that with Scrum? Well, that seems very simple, but in order to deal with technical debt, first you need to stop doing technical debt. 8 years of cutting corners and how the application and how the team is working is not very easy to change. So stop doing it seems easy, but it's not. Create a plan, assess business value, talk with the product owners, and agree on a process. Our process seems very easy. Just 20% of the capacity that we are doing right now is going to be dealt with technical debt. Is it working? Because I've got a plan to deal with technical debt, the product owners have their plan, and it's not well coordinated, plus the team is not very engaged. At the end, the thing I'm most proud of with all the transformation things have been done is the change of the mindset of the team. It all boils down to people. Half a year ago when I went to the team and asked, guys, why are you not doing unit tests? They have 20 answers why. Right now, they do it by themselves. They are proud of the quality. So the time is up. It's very hard to boil down a year of transformation into 15 minutes. We are going to be together, walking around. So feel free to approach us, discuss. We can be very elaborate on all of those topics.
That's true, actually.
Thanks a lot.